Okay, Leo Ascendant, Leo Rising, you have a full moon coming up in the sign of Libra. We're going to find out what location of your life this is going to happen and what kind of people, who those people are going to be. Remember, full moons elevate our emotions. They have a waxing and a waning time, so a few days before the full moon and a few days after. And of course, the day of, you want to be extra aware of your own emotions and not letting them overtake you. Remember, folks, it's not about what happens to you that matters. It's how you respond to what happens to you. And we're also going to take a look at Venus and what she's doing and how she's going to be sending us some support and energy and ease. And we also are going to take a look at, of course, Mars conjunct Saturn, which is all about restrictions on our actions. How long is it going to be this tight? And when will we feel a little bit of ease coming by way of Venus then moving in, sending additional support? We'll have Jupiter and we'll have Pluto conjunct, which again is that sign. When they're together, they are deep transformational changes in our life. So you're going to want to also know where this happens in your life. If you don't know any of the dates or the degrees that I'm talking about, and if you want to better understand, just comment your birth digits below. I can get information to you, and I will answer any questions that you have. So let's dive deep into the all astrology. We are going to be having a full moon on the 7th/8th of April. Now, the full moon is in Libra, and Libra is ruled by Venus. So Venus, Venusian energy represents our significant one-on-one relationships. It's all about love. It's all about what we value. Do we value ourselves? Who else we value? Who we put into that bucket of significant one-on-one relationships. So if you are a Leo Ascendant, Leo Rising, this full moon is going to be happening in your third house because this is where your Libran energy is at. Well, your third house is Gemini energy, right? And when we think of Gemini, it's ruled by Mercury. This is siblings. This is co-workers. This is business. This is commerce. This is trade. This is neighbors. Interesting, because now at a time when everybody's in their house, everyone's kind of like on lockdown, we're all of a sudden seeing more of our neighbors than we've seen before, especially here in our neighborhood. We look out and I see people walking dogs didn't even know existed in the neighborhood. I've seen families together, whole groups of families walking that I've never normally see. Every now and then you would see a random walker or jogger or one person only walking the dog, but instead walking the dog has become a family thing. So neighbors are really highlighted at this time. And with the full moon there, remember, this is elevated emotions. The degree of the full moon is what you're going to want to look for in your chart. It's 1844. That marking, if you have a planet there, all that means is that you're going to have a concentration of energy, which means typically elevated emotions, depending upon what planet or even asteroid that it's at that point. You'll better understand what it's going to mean for you with more details. Now, if you don't know this stuff, again, just comment your stuff below. I can help you figure that out. We're going to then look Venus because she rules Libra energy. You go and you find out where your private personal birth Venus is at. What sign is she in? And that sign, when you know what those meanings of that sign is, it'll better explain to you. Like, I'll give you an example. Okay, if I'm looking at a chart and I see, right, Libra energy, third house, I want to look for their Venus. So I'm looking at the chart. Okay, bam. Venus is in the sign of Gemini. So right off the top, I'm like, okay, Gemini energy. Gemini is talking, communicating, thinking. So Venus would love to do those things. They'd be really important to her. So in other words, if you don't have any planets in your third house, right, and you have the full moon there, communicating all of a sudden with siblings, communicating with people like coworkers, communicating with neighbors, you're going to feel, because of the heightened awareness and the emotions around the full moon, you're going to tend to want to reach out to these people more. You're going to have this love of communication. You're going to want to reach out and be like, hey, how are you? This is typical for this. Now, what you're going to look for in your chart is to see if you have anything squaring it. So if we have Venus here if we have Libran energy right here at 1844, what would square it, right? We pull out the handy dandy lighter. A square would be 90 degrees in equal energies. Libran energy is cardinal energy, all right? What are the other cardinal signs? We have Cancer and we have Capricorn. And opposite of Libra up here at the top, we would have Aries energy. But we're looking for the squares, okay? When I say the squares, it's not that the oppositions, which would be the opposing side, right? It's not that they don't matter. They do matter, but they tend to, it's the squares that are the real testing points. And if you have something at both points at 1844, it's a big T-square then. And the T-square means you're being stressed when you turn to your left, and you're being stressed when you turn to your right. And it's like, no matter where I go, I'm like feeling frustrated. I'm feeling tested. I'm feeling, there's this building of these things are not going the way I want them to. Normally, I can do something and it happens the first time, but no, it means it takes like 4, 5, 6, 7 steps to accomplish something. Now, because this is in relationships, Libran energy is our significant one-on-one relationships. So this could be business partnerships. It could be love relationships. This is in your 3rd house. So it would not be odd at all for siblings to get into this picture. Now, does that mean it has to be blood siblings? No. It could be anyone in your life who feels like a sibling for you. Anyone in your life who feels like a neighbor. So discover where your Venus is, and that'll give you more details as to specifically who these folks are going to be. Now, let's talk a little bit about the stress and the tension, because that is just one aspect. That's the full moon. But before the full moon happens, like I said, 7th and 8th. But when we talk about the end of March, I'm actually recording today on the 28th of March. We have the planet Mars at 28 degrees right now in Capricorn energy. Mars is going to get closer and closer to Saturn. Saturn is at 0 degrees in Aquarian energy. We understand Mars. Mars is all about taking action. It's our body. It wants to do. It doesn't want to sit and talk. It wants to be physical. It wants to move around. But when it gets closer to Saturn, Saturn is about, whoa, slow down. Saturn puts up the stop sign. Initially begins with a yellow light, slow, and then it definitely says, okay, we're putting a stop to this. No more movement here. So this brings upon frustration. All right. Understanding where your Aquarius energy is will give you greater insight as to where in your life you're going to be feeling this, where you can expect to feel it. When you have these cycles down pat, when you understand the time frames involved and what energy is at play, you can better adjust your expectations. You can reevaluate your timelines. So when it comes to living life, you can then be strategic about how to navigate the waters of life. So if we take a look at your Aquarian energy, it's in your 7th house, typically. Remember, these are general readings. If I don't have an exact birth time, then I can't tell you specifically what house it's in. But if you do know that information and you share it with me, then I can get back to you and say, yeah, this is definitely in your 7th. Now, why would this be important? Because your 7th house is your significant one-on-one relationships. All right, your significant one-on-one relationships is typically going to be someone that you're married to, a partnership of some sort. So it's someone that's very significant in your life. All right, this would be a big deal because Saturn is going to be transiting through your 7th house for the next 2.5 years, people. All right, now, right now, when Mars and Saturn come the end of March, like March 31st, they're conjunct exactly. So that's when it's at its tightest. But normally, folks begin to feel the restriction happening 2 days before. So by the 29th, you will feel some sort of a restriction if you haven't felt it already. I'm already witnessing it in the world around me. A good example is if we go back to thinking what Aquarian energy is, it's group energy. It's anywhere you gather. It's anywhere you congregate with other folks, typically like-minded people. So on the internet, right, we got all these social media sites where we congregate and where we have conversations. And we're not doing it so much in the physical world. We're using technology to congregate. But what if we're not? What if we're being very physical in the 3D realm? Well, here's a good example. We recently had the parks closed down in the Chicagoland area. Prior to this, the governor had put a lockdown on, but they were encouraging people to get out and walk and exercise. And the forest preserves were still open. And there were no restrictions, right, as far as that was concerned, because I guess they assumed people would just go and bike ride and jog and be solitary. Well, what they found out over the last few days, they realized, I should say, that people were literally congregating in large groups. And whether it was purposed, whether it was their intent or not, that's just what was happening. And so it was like, whoa, where is the 6-foot rule happening here? It's not, and that's not good. We're trying to isolate ourselves. We're trying to create social distancing for the purpose of slowing down, flattening the curve, so to speak. So during this time, Saturn represents the new rules. All right. Now, where is Saturn? Where's Aquarius energy? Like I said, 7th house. So new rules in terms of hooking up with one-on-one relationships. Maybe you would go off to eat all the time or something. You're going to see additional restrictions. Now, when this happens, we feel frustrated because Mars wants to take action. But Saturn and Mars together, there's like these two great keywords, and it is disciplined action. That's what Saturn and Mars represent. It is about, okay, you can have action, but you have to be disciplined. You have to be able to tell your Martian body, no, we're not doing that now. We're going to do this then. And you're going to say to yourself, okay, I got to kind of like step back a little bit, slow down, and I might have to just do nothing for a certain amount of time. Once we get to April 3rd, Mars pulls away from Saturn, and we now have a 2-degree space. Mars will be at 2 degrees Aquarian energy. Saturn will still be at 0 because Saturn is slow. Mars moves pretty quick compared to Saturn. At the same time, the planet Venus, okay, she'll have been in the latter degrees of Capricorn energy. Now, Venus in the latter degrees of Capricorn, this is literally going to be exact, like on the 29th of this month, which I think is tomorrow. And this is beautiful because Venus is a supportive energy. She's typically spoken of as a benefic energy. She likes to bring gifts when she comes, okay? Venus loves fine things. She loves good food. She likes nice clothing, anything that gives her joy by way of the senses. So that would be taste, touch, smell, what she can see, right? We can all relate to that. There are things in our life that we love to eat, right? We love our good food. We like things that smell a beautiful way, flowers, okay? Venus loves shoes. She loves things that feel good on her, right? Venus is very earth-orientated, so it's typically going to be things that are very tangible. But on the metaphysical, on the non-tangible, in the spiritual/esoteric astrology, Venus is literally what I value. Venus is love, right? Can you describe love? Can you put a price tag on love? Can you pick love up and hold it and show it to me? Not typically, right? Love, if you want to show love, it has to be demonstrated through an action of some sort. It's not necessarily something I can put in a box and be like, here you go, here's love. Although a lot of people do that, right? They buy gifts for someone they love, a token of their love for them, of their admiration. Well, this is the physical manifestation. So the whole goal of Venus is to get us to discover what it is we really value. Is it just the physical, tangible things? Or are we deeper than that? Do we find out during this pandemic that we have valued things that were literally just on the surface, right? And so this is what this time is, because the full moon is in Libra, whose ruler is Venus, okay? And Venus is going to be sending a sweet supportive trine to your Capricorn energy. On the 29th, this is beneficial energy. This is, okay, there's support coming. Something is coming from Venus that adds ease. Now remember, Venus rules Taurus energy. Taurus energy is money. Taurus is what I value. Taurus is our tangible world. It is also people in my life that I value. All right, there is going to be an ease that comes through, some sort of support. This is a trine at 24, almost 25 degrees. So find out in your chart what you have there. If I'm going to look down at your chart for Leo Ascendant, Leo Rising, you have your Taurus energy in your 10th house of your goals and your ambitions. All right, so that's where Venus will be at 24, 25 degrees, sending support to your 6th house of work, your 6th house of health. That's where your Capricorn energy is. Now, Venus moves fast, okay? So she doesn't just sit there and just keep giving gifts. No, Venus, she trucks on through and she goes into air. And by the 3rd/4th of April, Venus is now in Gemini, and she is sending supportive beams, supportive energy to your, first of all, your Saturn, right? She sends a trine to Saturn. And as she trucks along by the 4th, she's almost exactly trine to Mars. Mars is at 2 degrees in Aquarius. These are like elements, so it's another supportive trine. So paying attention to Venus is great, because where you have difficulty, if she comes through and sends a supportive beam, she's going to add ease, which can balance things, right? You got something hard happening here. Venus comes along, sends a beam of support, and it's like, okay, she took the edge off. She made it a little bit manageable. She made it a little bit easier to deal with. And so this is going to be vital. Now, I got to find out, where is your Gemini energy at? Because that's where Venus is going. Gemini's in your 11th house. What does that tell me? Well, this is your group energy. If Venus goes there, that means you could receive a benefit by somebody that's part of your friendship, okay, in the locations of friendship. Now, it could have to do with people you know on the internet because it's your 11th house, right? We're not able to gather in groups, but there's somewhere a group of people that used to congregate. Somebody within that group, you can get benefit from them in some way, shape, or form. All right, this is all good to know during a time when we're in a pandemic, right? Remember, Pluto, Jupiter, let's talk about that. Pluto is deep. Pluto is our soul. Pluto makes changes at a very, very deep level. Now, we talked about Saturn conjunct Pluto in January, okay? And they were at 23 degrees, which is where pretty much Pluto is right now. It's at 24 degrees. This is also an eclipse location, right? When we look at the eclipses that have occurred, I have them all written down here. We've got this spot that becomes a pressure point. And now with Jupiter there, Jupiter adds to things, okay? And Pluto is about deep transformational changes. And it being in the sign of Capricorn, meaning there's business structures being changed. There's governmental things being changed. And we're seeing a lot of changes happen on a big scale that then affect us on the little scale. We don't have history on COVID-19 at all, right? This is a new thing. All we can do is pay attention to the energy and pay attention to the cycles. But I do know that the planet Mercury specifically has to do with our lungs. And so it's not a coincidence that the planet Mercury is in the sign of Pisces right now. And Pisces represents like disease and viruses and stuff. So if Mercury's going through there, it makes sense that we're not going to see anything clear up until Mercury gets out of Pisces, right? That makes sense. So we have probably all of April that we're going to be facing this and dealing with, you know, the culmination of things. On a more positive note, we also have to talk about the support that Venus sends Jupiter and Pluto. Now, Jupiter and Pluto get this 24-degree mark 3 times in 2020. Jupiter being beneficial and adding to things, but at the same time, being conjunct Pluto means it's going to be sweeping changes that will give benefit for our future, right? For the future of not just of my life, but for the life of humanity, for the life of all of us globally. You know, we literally are in this together, but unfortunately, there are things about our lives that do separate and divide us. And the whole goal is to try to focus on the energy of doing something that can benefit me, but that can benefit others as well. All right, that is the test of this time. Your actions and how you respond to what's occurring is definitely being watched, all right? And it's being watched by your own soul. There's no judgment on the outer level. It's a matter of you standing up to the tests that your soul has presented in front of you. So for Leo Ascendant, Leo Rising, that Capricorn energy being in your 6th house means there could be things by your health that are transforming, things about your work that are transforming, because that's what the 6th house is. Remember, it's also that location of hygiene. And what have we learned about the hygiene thing? Oh, that's all we've been talking about. Wash your hands, folks, right? And the proper way to wash the hands and all that good stuff. So this is like an eye-opening thing, but remember the big picture. That's how you'll get through these times. The big picture is this is to elevate the consciousness of humanity. It is considered a quantum leap because of Jupiter and Pluto being together. Pluto itself being the slowest of all the planets means that it is spread out over an entire generations. All right, it affects tons of people. It affects millions. It's happening to the entire world. But the whole purpose is to elevate our consciousness. And when that occurs globally, we will then change the choices that we make, for that we have a better earth, right? So that we can live with the 2-legged and the 4-legged, that we respect all life, right? In all forms. So for Leo Ascendant, Leo Rising, I'm going to end this off with giving you that reminder of your full moon energy at 1844 in Libra in your 3rd house. If you want to know if you have something that's squaring it, look to your Cancer, Capricorn energies in your chart. And again, that's going to be located in your 12th house and in your 6th house. And so this could be a big deal because the 6th house is health. Now, that's only a factor if you have something at those matching degrees. If you don't know, comment your stuff below. I'll help you out. Hope this has put some light on your path.